Hi, and welcome to this video where we're going to be explaining the risk-right meta model. I'm Tony Nelson. All a meta model is the structure of information. It sounds rather fancy, but it really isn't, as you'll see over the next few slides. A meta model shows the components of a system and their logical relationships. A fundamental principle of systems thinking is to pay as much attention to the relationships as to the elements in the system. Now, this meta model helps us understand what a risk looks like, its logical structure, by looking at the elements of a risk and their relationships. And once you understand this, it doesn't matter what tool you use or what policy or procedures your organization wants you to follow, the logic doesn't change. Now we're going to go over this logic, which is unique to risk-right. See our contact details for more information on us and what we do. And if you like this, please subscribe, visit our webpage and follow us. And follow our other accounts as well for more great help on our unique risk-right analysis method, and for news on our AI app, which is going to make risk analysis even quicker for you. Right, back to risk. To begin with, we have a risk. It doesn't matter if that risk is a threat, it could hurt you, it's an issue, it's hurting you right now, or an opportunity, it's going to benefit you somehow. They're all managed in exactly the same way. They help us define the problem, understand how big the problem is, what we can do about it, the return of investment which is based on doing something versus not doing something, and any improvements and reporting can come out of that. So let's work out how. So a risk comprises of a risk statement, and we're going to go into more detail in a minute. It helps us define the problem space. And properly defining the problem helps us understand the impact. That impact could be negative. It's going to cost us time or money. It's going to hit our reputation. Or it might benefit us, but we don't know by how much. So we have to do an impact assessment to understand all of that. And that thought process is going to help us do planning. And this is where a lot of people don't understand how to use risks and don't see this stage through. They use assessment to put a lot of money to one side. That is contingency management. That is not risk management. Delivering your response plans is risk management. Now, it takes time and collaboration to write a plan well, but our method can really help, as you'll see. And planning helps you understand what it is that you're going to do about a risk, how many people you might need to do it. So that's your resource forecast, how much time, what are your definitions of done, how do you know you're on track? And this is where reviews are now needed to evaluate the success of your plans in managing the risk. If you spend your time arguing about titles, then you haven't properly identified your risks. And once we know what does and doesn't work, risks become a vital source of recommendations for improvement. Our method can do a lot of this work for you. We don't need dozens of different processes. Indeed, a single well-established risk management plan can do all of this for you. Now, most risk management cycles will go along the general terms of identify, raise, assess, plan, respond, and review. And different businesses advocate slightly different variations. But for me, it boils down to 4 key steps shown here, and which very much aligns with the ISO standard 31000. Now, when people go through the risk management cycle, they're quite unsure how they go about going from step to step, but this is how the meta model helps us. So we need to go another level deeper. The first thing we're going to do is consider the event. What is the thing that is going to happen to trigger the threat becoming reality and go from a threat to an issue? It is something we thought we could avoid, but we couldn't. Or in the case of an opportunity, that event will tell us that we have achieved our savings target or delivered ahead of schedule. Now, this is the hardest part of risk analysis, so be prepared for some discussion. We test the event by looking at the dates. Can we pick a date that the event will happen? Is there something in the schedule that we can align to? That is called our trigger date. If you can't situate that event in time, you probably don't understand your event sufficiently well. The expiry date is when the event can no longer happen. Now think of this in terms of program management. The trigger date is when funding will be made available to you to recover the negative impacts of the threat happening. The expiry date is when that funding is taken away. Now for now, don't worry about all the terminology. There's a lot to take in. But remember, this is the most complex part of the process, and the rest is much more straightforward. In any case, you can watch the post again, or you can attend one of our online courses where we talk this through interactively with you using our real life examples. And there's plenty of other resources that we're building on our website for you to access. As you can see here, we also have response start dates and completion dates, but we'll cover those off later. What's the next thing we're going to think of? A lot of people will often jump straight to causes, but that will not get us to the assessment. We're going to have to look at the effects next. Effects are the consequences of the event happening, but that's not enough. We need to know what we are going to do about it, what actions we need to take, what is our plan B. If the event were to happen and our plan B has already been prepared, it could be implemented quickly, saving us time, money, and stress. And once we know the activities involved, we can cost them. Things to include: how long it might take, how many people you might need, are there any other material costs, will things incur lost sales, is there a negative performance impact where we have to downgrade our sales forecast, etc. Our plan Bs are known as fallback plans, and once costed, that's what gives us the assessment. And now we know how much a threat could hurt us or an opportunity benefit us, we are almost ready to make some decisions. Now we can think of the causes. By this stage, much of our thinking will have been done, so it's just a case of getting it down so it can be effectively communicated between our stakeholders. Causes are often more obvious than our effects, and they're a bit more fun to develop as well. With the causes understood, we can think of actions to take that reduce the likelihood of them happening or reduce the impact of them if they do. Now, our method and tools provide all sorts of handy frameworks to guide you through this thought process. There's lots of things that we could use to inform our actions. Some of them will be quite obvious, some of them less so, but overall, the earlier you implement them, the cheaper they will be and the more effective too. Think of this like paying off your mortgage earlier or building up your savings earlier so they have longer to grow. Most of the time, our actions will involve some research, some collaboration, some communication with different stakeholders, so you'll never go wrong if you do a stakeholder analysis and start engaging with them early about what could be done. Which is why, under our competency framework on the resources page, you can see that stakeholder analysis is high up on the list. Many hands make light work, and many perspectives can be more accurate in defining possible solutions. We can also use industry best practice, such as how-to guides, reference sources provided through your professional institutions or businesses, ISO standards and academic research, etc. We can also schedule our response actions now we know our trigger date and expiry dates. We'd want to have our threats managed, for example, before the threat can happen, if possible. You should be able to create a Gantt chart of response actions as well. Once we understand if there's any cost attributed to those actions, we can compare it to the cost of not doing those actions. And we have our return of investment. We also have some decisions we can take to senior leaders. If, for example, there's something with a minor cost of impact and expensive cost of response, we could tolerate it. If the cost impact is high, but we need specialist support for the response actions, our leaders have a choice to make. We could get lucky and the threat might not happen, but that's a decision for whoever owns the resources. In this way, risk is empowering because your boss might say no to a recommendation. In this case, it's not your risk to own anymore. That burden is lifted off your shoulders, and the risk really then sits with a leader that said, we can't afford it, or we're not going to do it. The other part of response planning is understanding our controls. What data flows do we need to tap into to observe and understand? Will we know if the threat is getting worse or better? We need to know, so tolerating a risk does not mean forgetting about it. Controls will also reflect your return meetings, who you need to understand. So you need to understand who needs to attend, what the agenda items are, how frequently do people need to meet, what actions need to be tracked, etc. And once we have our actions and controls established, then our reviews should be used to measure progress, which is represented through a reduction in current risk exposure and including any new information. Response actions and controls that are particularly effective provide valuable lessons that can be fed into any improvement initiatives. And to wrap up, this is the RiskRight meta model. It would be great if you got in touch, signed up for our courses or our other free content to help you. And please don't forget to subscribe for more insight into effective risk analysis. If you or your organisation would benefit from further support, please reach out through our website. Thank you ever so much.